It's a little hard to read, I will say. She's intense, man. She's one of these intense. She's a 17th century French saint. So you're talking like 1600s, I think like 1620s, 30s. She lives till she's about in her 40s, 42, I think she dies, somewhere in there. So she doesn't live a very long life by modern standards. She's a French mystic. And are you guys familiar with Saint Therese of Lisieux?
Yes.
Yeah, so a more modern French. I think Therese of Lisieux would also be considered to be a mystic. I'm not. I've tried to read her autobiography of a soul. Have you guys read that?
No.
It's intense, man. The French spirituality is a little bit different, I will say.
Yeah.
It doesn't always appeal to American sympathies, and especially male American sympathies, because these people are very delicate souls. Very scrupulous, could be a word, but has a bad connotation. Very sensitive souls.
Right.
She's a very sensitive soul from a really young age. She's born to a family. She's one of 7, the only girl. Mm-hmm. And then her father dies when she's really young. I think her father dies when I'm not sure what age her father dies, but because her father dies and he didn't do a good job legally preparing for his children after his death, probably because it was a little bit of an untimely death in his family, his brother ends up getting a lot of his money. And his brother is not portrayed as a good character in her stories. Basically, he takes the money and squanders it. So it leaves a woman in 17th century France to provide for the family. So the mom is basically away, St. Margaret Mary's mother. And her name, when she's born originally, is just St. Margaret. And so she can't go to school. And she depicts it in her autobiography like her brothers basically ruled the house and basically controlled and were like terrible tyrants. Probably because they were just young boys with no father figure and a mother who was absent. So she writes about it, and again, she's a little intense about they basically just controlled her household. So she doesn't even begin going to school till she's 8.5, and then she goes to a convent school, is extremely sickly as a young girl, very spiritual as a young girl. She ends up becoming deadly ill around the age of 10, and she makes a prayer to Mary, basically, that says, "If you heal me," I mean, I think this is a prayer we've all made. But she apparently made it in great faith. "If you heal me, I will devote my life to Jesus." And it was a very kind of deadly long illness, is the way that she described it. Maybe some sort of, I'm not exactly sure what it was, but I know that it was deathly. So she was afraid for her life, and other people were afraid for her life. Mm-hmm. Anyway,
you said she was 10?
Yeah, she's 10.
That's nuts that some saints are like so devoted at that young of an age, you know? Yeah, I can't say the same for my life. Me neither.
Yeah, I mean, she was having visions when she was basically a young girl.
Damn.
And she was like I'm going to be obedient to my brothers, these like tyrannical leaders, as this young girl. Probably in part because she's a young girl, but also because she had this sense of like devotion to Jesus at a really young age, and like, these are my legitimate authority figures. So like, she would make pains, like she wanted to go to mass to pray, basically. But she had to get the permission of the 3 older brothers. And there were some days when one would say, "Yeah, you can go," and then another would not want to go, would say no. And then she would like make supplications before her brothers, like, "Let me go, please let me." I mean, you can just imagine. But in her mind, she's like, "I can't go unless." And there was certainly a spiritual component for her too, which was like, I need to be obedient to God. So if he doesn't give me permission, I can't go. Which is kind of why I say the autobiography is intense.
Right.
Yeah. But she gets deathly ill. She prays to Mary. She's healed immediately. I don't know if it's that day or the next day. And so she takes on the name Mary. She takes on, now I'm Margaret Mary Alacoque, and makes this vow to Jesus. To like speed up the rest of her story, basically, even though she makes the vow when she's 10, she doesn't enter the convent till she's 24. And so her mom, I mean, she's the only daughter, and one way to get rich is to marry a really rich guy. So at the request of her brothers and her mom, she goes to like balls and dances, like she's trying to meet boys. And she has an experience like St. Faustina, who you mentioned earlier with Divine Mercy, where she's on like a dance floor, basically, and the crucified God appears to her, Jesus, and he goes, you forget about something, more or less. What about your vow you made to me? And of course that like kills her
Wait, that was at the dance?
At the dance.
Kills the vibe, as they say.
Well, definitely kills the vibe. Yeah, she would not dance after that.
Wow.
But she says, she's intense, man. She says she would rather have been, she was going out of obedience to her parents and her brothers, more or less. But she was considering that. You know, she was like, maybe I should do this. And she's a little kid, you know. And so she sometimes forgets Jesus. And she likes playing dress up at the balls. And she thinks she's beautiful. And so she kind of castigates herself for, like, thinking that she was beautiful when she knows she's only Jesus' bride. Certainly, like, a remarkable young mind, a very sensitive young girl, and had a crazy soul. I mean, just a beautiful soul. In love with God. And so she's like, oh yeah, I forgot about that God. But she says to God, in truth, I would rather have been cut up into pieces than marry a man. Because like she's
wow.
she's definitely an intense woman. So